this video, I'm going to show you how to factor trinomials using the AC method. So a trinomial is anything that has three terms. So, such as 3x squared plus x minus 4. Now, there's a lot of different ways of factoring, and I actually grew up using something called the guess and check method. I think that this particular version of the AC method is probably the most methodical. It's by no means, I don't think it's the fastest. I think guess and check can be a little bit quicker than the AC method. However, it works. It has the same steps every time, and for difficult problems, I think it's probably the better one. For very easy ones, if there's no number in front of the x squared, then you definitely want to try to do guess and check. But when there's a number out here, AC method works pretty well. So first thing I got to talk about is the basic form of a quadratic is in this form, where you have A, B, and C in this order, in descending order. So ax squared plus bx plus c. So in this case, A is the 3 and C is the negative 4. Now when I do the AC method, I take the entire thing. So 3x squared times negative 4, negative 12x squared. So AC meaning A times C. So what we're going to do is we're going to split up A times C and then take two factors of that and set them equal to B. So B in this case is x. Now, factors of 12. I want them to give me 1x. So things I got to try. I got 12 and 1. That doesn't give me 1. I can add them up and get 13, or subtract and get 11. 2 and 6. Not going to get me 1. How about 3 and 4? This is kind of a little bit weird way of doing this. I usually start with 1 and then go 2, 3. So it should be a little bit more like this. 1 and 12. 2, 3. I can't really go any further because the second I try to go 4, it goes back down to 3, and I've already used that. 5 doesn't work. 6, 2. You kind of run out pretty quick. Now 3 and 4 work. I want to get 1. Now here's where the signs come into play. If I go 4x minus 3x, that would be 1x, and it would add up. It would multiply to get me negative 12. 4 times negative 3 gets me negative 12. Now be careful of signs here. I don't want to put the negative in front of the 4 and a positive on the 3 because I want it to be a positive 1x. That's my B term. Alright, so we've picked out the right numbers. 4x minus 3x is 1x. Now, here's the thing you got to really realize. This is equal to 1x. It's not different. I'm not changing anything. So what I'm going to do now is where I see this 1x, I'm going to replace it with what it's equal to. 4x minus 3x. Nothing changes here. Now, what else I've got? I've got a 3x squared out front, plus 4x, there's a positive 4x, and this minus 4. So, if you want to combine like terms, you go right back where you started, and you get regular old x. So don't combine like terms, that's circular. So now what you've got is you got 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, which is grouping. Now, if you need help with grouping, I got a video on grouping, but this is the gist of it. Split it up in two pairs, and the first pair you take out GCF, which is the x, leaving us with the 3x plus 4. We can go through the grouping step pretty quickly. If there's a negative out front, we're going to take out the negative, and there's nothing else I can take out. There's no x's, there's no numbers. I don't have to regroup it, because if I look here, I've got this 3x plus 4. That's what I want. If I take the negative out, leaves me with 3x. You gotta take the negative out of here as well, plus 4. What I'll see is a lot of people will kind of like play lip service to this negative, and then they'll forget that it comes out of this negative as well. These have to match up. So what will happen is they don't match up, and then someone will just kind of like, oh, they must work anyway, so I'll just make them match up. No, make sure that the math actually works. If you can come up with this process right here, the problem will work. So 3x plus 4 is one factor. The other factor is x minus, well, if there's nothing to take out, we take out the negative. A lot of times people want to take out a negative 1. They think it's easier to see what we have to write here. So do you have to have something? If I take all of this out, what's left? It's this minus blank, well, minus 1. So if you don't have something to take out, take a 1. If you need to take a negative out, you take out a negative 1. Want to double check it? FOIL it back out. Alright, let's try another one. Let's go with a 3a squared minus 10a plus 8. And when we do AC, we get a 24a squared. Split this up into two numbers that get us negative 10a. Okay, now here's the thing that's kind of causes a little bit of trouble. There are two possible answers, but only one that really works. So here's the part that kind of throws people off here. Let's try 12a minus, oh, sorry, we gotta go the other way. 2a minus 12a. Now this at first looks pretty good, because 2 minus 12 is negative 10. The problem is, this is a positive 24a squared. When I multiply these two together, I will not get a positive. So this is what I call a false factor. It looks like it works, but if you try it out here, it doesn't work. You can try it, it just doesn't work. As plain as that. So 2 and 12 doesn't work. 1 and 24, not going to give me 10. 3 and 8, not going to give me 10. How about 4 and 6? That'll work. So we're going to go with a negative 4 and a negative 6. Let's try that right here. Negative 4a minus 6a. They will add up to negative 10. They will multiply to give me a positive 24. So we have 3a squared. And we're going to replace our negative 10a with a negative 4a minus 6a. And then plus 8. Take out our GCFs. Go through our whole grouping pattern. 3a minus 4. In the second group, we can take out a negative 2, 3a. And whenever you take this negative out of the group, it changes the sign. These have to match up. 3a minus 4 and an a minus 2. Alright, so that's the main thing. We're going to do one more thing before we get out of here, and we're going to talk about how we're going to use this to help us solve. Alright, so let's say we've got 15x squared plus 20x minus 75, and we're going to set this equal to 0. Alright, so the first thing that you got to be a little bit aware of here is if I want to do a times c, these are pretty big numbers. So 15 times 75, you're going to start getting pretty astronomical. And pretty quickly you're going to have to use your calculator to try to figure out what the factors are. Now, one of the things that we notice here, at least I hope we notice, is that there is a GCF. I can take a 5 out of everything, which really helps knock down the numbers. 3x squared plus 4x minus 15. Alright, so that's a much nicer scenario here. Alright, so we'll run through our AC and see what happens. Now this is still equal to 0. We'll see how that works here in a second. So a times 3, so 3 times 15 is 45 x squared. And it's at 3 times negative 15, so negative 45. Split this up into two numbers that equal 4x. Now when you take out GCF, you always go with the new term. We're treating this like a whole new problem. We're ignoring this. This is kind of gone. All of this is old news. The other thing that's kind of gone is this 5 here. One of the things we're going to realize is the 5 is not really all that useful in this sort of problem. So, and we'll talk about it in a second. So we're going to break up this into numbers that give us 4. Okay, so first factor that's coming to mind for 45 are 9 and 5. So 9x minus 5x does give us 4x. Alright, let's check this out. 3x squared. Now if you get a GCF out here, I would ignore it for now because it's probably going to just confuse you when you try to go to your grouping set. When you go in the end, make sure you bring the 5 down. So 3x squared plus 9x minus 5x minus 15. 4 terms, do our grouping. And then we got x plus 3 and 3x minus 5. And bring another 5. So if the question just asks us a factor, this would be our final factored answer. Now, we're trying to solve, so here's the deal. Anytime you've got two things, two numbers, so like number 1 times number 2, two products, and they're equal to 0. When you get two things multiplied and they equal 0, one of them has to equal 0. Either this equals 0 or this equals 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to set each factor equal to 0. Okay, so 5 equals 0. That's a factor. There's 3 here. This is a factor, this is a factor, this is a factor. This doesn't work. Doesn't give me anything. X plus 3 equals 0. Well, that's something. 3x minus 5 equals 0. Now, if you saw this anywhere in the math class, I'm hoping you're going to realize that you're going to solve this little equation, and you're going to get x equals negative 3. Now, if you're thinking about it, it's just going to be the opposite. So, most of the time after doing a couple of these, you're going to be able to solve them in your head. The second one's a little bit tougher because of the 3. So, yeah, we do get a 5 over there. This 3x equals 5. So, divide by the 3, and we get x equal to 5 over 3. Now, if you want to check these, you can plug them into the original equation and make sure that it equals 0. Should work for both numbers entirely. So, it didn't change how we factored, but in the end, if we're solving, we set each factor equal to 0. Alright, let's try one more here. So, let's go with x cubed minus x squared equals 42x. Alright, so the first thing is the zero product property only works if it equals 0. So I get a lot of people who want to take out like an x squared out of the left side and then like, no, it doesn't work. If it's not equal to 0, you can't do this. So the first thing you do is bring over the 42x. Now if you notice, every problem we've done so far has been in a nice descending order. If it's not in descending order, you have to put it in descending order. Alright, we're equal to 0. So the first step I always say is taking out GCF. Well, that's true with factoring. When we're solving, first step is make sure it's equal to 0. Now that it's equal to 0, look for a GCF. I'm hoping you're noticing this 3. We really haven't had a problem like that so far. So we can take an x out of everything. Makes things nice and neat. X squared minus x minus 42. Now, if this was a problem I was doing on my own, I probably would not use AC method because there's no number out front. So the A is just 1. It basically just becomes C. So we're looking for factors of negative 42x squared. So yeah, the A really doesn't really play. That gives us negative x. This, for some reason, seems to be a little tougher for people. Well, it's 6 and 7. So 6x minus 7x. Multiply, give me 42. Subtract for x. So anytime we have the GCF out front, we usually kind of just leave it off until the end. Plus 6x minus 7x. Replace the x with that. Minus 42. Do our whole grouping. And then when we go to factor it, make sure that you have the x out front. We have our x plus 6 and the x minus 7. We set all of our factors equal to 0. And we solve each of them. So x equals 0, because that's already there, negative 6, and positive 7. All 3 should work if you plug them into the original equation, either in this state or in this reordered state. Whenever you try to check a solution, always go back to the very original equation if you have